talk about what she's done over the years to introduce alumni programming into the what I call internal constituents within our organizations that oftentimes don't always know what their role is. And so I've had the pleasure of working with Michael closely when she was doing some of this at Harmony Foundation. And so I'm excited to hear more about what she's going to be sharing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Michael.
I'm like, thank you, Gina. I'm so excited to be here with all of you. My name is Michael Maassel. I am a person in recovery, and I live for this. Like, just straight up, I live for alumni programming. I live for treatment. And my presentation today, basically, I always tell people when I present, if you need to put a white noise machine on, put it on, because you'll hear me like yelling through the computer because I'm so excited. So you might want to put some headphones in. So if you have a neighbor, they're not like, who the hell are you talking to? Then you're like, it's webinar. So I'm just going to preface that. I get really passionate because I see what happens when we engage our alumni. Currently, I work with NAATP as the membership manager. Previously, I spent the first 6 years of my career in alumni programming and developing programming for single site, multi-site, for-profit, nonprofit facilities all across the US. And what I'm going to talk about today is exactly that, is about engaging every department, and we'll get into that in a minute. I've loved serving for TPAS. I actually stepped off the board of, I will be stepping off the board of directors in 4 days. I served for TPAS for 5 years. 2 of those, I was co-president of the board of directors. And I love seeing TPAS gain traction and also validity in the treatment industry. For those of you who know of the National Association of Addiction Treatment Professionals, TPAS is receiving a very prestigious award next week. They are receiving the James West Quality Improvement Award, and that speaks volumes for what TPAS has chosen to embark on to improve alumni programming and to improve the overall sight seeing of what alumni is. And so that our goal, I believe, at TPAS is to let every single facility know that the alumni is not an afterthought. It is a vital part to the continuum of programming, and it should never be top of list when it comes to looking at budget cuts, ever. So we're going to dive right into this. I'm so excited, you guys. So I'm just going to let you know, like, I'm going to present for about 20-25 minutes on this topic, because then I want to open it up for discussion. So I'll get through what I want to talk about. And if questions come up, I just ask that you save them till the end. And then we can all collectively discuss anything. My slide deck will also be in TPAS community, correct, Gina? You'll put it in TPAS. It will be in TPAS community for those of you that want to take a gander at it or you look at it. So we're gonna get this party started. So I'm gonna share my screen, and we're gonna go for it. So let's from the beginning. All right, can everybody see my screen okay? Everybody's good?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Engaging every department. I'm going to talk about unveiling the vital role of company buy-in, your entire company buy-in as it pertains to alumni programming. This is me. Like I said, I love pictures, and I talked about who I am. These are all pictures of me with various alumni groups of people that I've worked with. As you can see in some of the photos, there's dogs. I make sure I'm also one of those people that dogs should always be at every single event, even on campus. But I'm a big believer. All of these photos are of alumni coming back to campus and doing really wonderful things for the organization. So again, TPAS board of directors, co-president, single site, multi-site, for-profit, nonprofit, alumni programming is my jam, and I live for it. So let's dive in. Let's talk about company buy-in, why it is so important that your company understands the value of alumni programming, okay? This is what our alumni are. And for any of you that don't know what this is a billboard. I really like to say that our alumni are walking billboards in public for the organization that they went and got treatment at. They are the ones that really are the truth speakers. We have outreach. Outreach is great, but alumni are the ones that are really going to dissect and talk about what their experience really was like at your organization. Our alumni are the ones that are really going to be able to, and I always tell this to clinicians, and we'll get into this in a minute, but it is so important for the company, for whatever organization you work with, for them to really understand, you guys, that the moment a client walks in to those doors, they're going to remember every single interaction. Maybe not the first 48 hours. Let's be real. I went to treatment high as a kite, drunk as a skunk. So I don't remember my intake, but I remember the nurses. I remember my counselor. I remember the cooks. I remember the housekeepers. I remember the groundsmen. And so every interaction that everybody has with these clients on campus matters. It matters more than they like to believe, because they will talk about it. And for those of you that have been in alumni programming for a while, you probably understand the brevity that they will say, like, what made or break treatment. It could have been the way a cook looked at them, or the way even a groundsman didn't engage with them when they were crying, walking from, one building to another and feeling like nobody cared about them. It can be that the nurse was really short with them and didn't care because she was stressed and took it out on the client. So it's understanding and having, I will tell you guys, it is having these conversations with your campus staff that, look, these are our billboards. Like, these are the people that are really going to be, whether alumni know it or not, they are selling your program. They are selling our program. So how is every single one of your departments treating them from the moment they enter campus, throughout their stay and trying to get better, to when they leave? So this, to me, is very important to understand, that we are billboards. It's like, hello world. And do you want them to be a billboard that looks like hope and excitement, or do you want them to look at it like depressed, angry, upset because they felt like they weren't taken care of, that your treatment center just wanted their money, and then get out, go fly, figure it out. Maybe you'll come back to us again, right? So what side of you really get to get curious with your organization, like, what side are we on here? This is a human life we're dealing with every day. This is campus. This is campus's perception, you guys. So I will say, when we look at company buy-in and alumni programming, because it is not right on campus, we are usually an afterthought. We are doing programming off of campus, or when we do want to come to campus, they look at us as disruptors. For the most part, they look at us like as a virus that is coming back to campus in this calm homeostasis environment. They look at us as, and I say us because, like, we're all an alumni, so I just say us. We are a we, just so you guys know. They look at us as unpredictable. They don't want alumni to come back to campus and say the wrong thing. They don't want alumni to come back and cause harm. A lot of perception is they see alumni as a liability. And when organizations choose to take that perception of, you are a disruptor, you're going to disrupt the schedule. What if they come back and they're high? What if they come back and they're high, or they're intoxicated? What if they come back and they say something that campus might deem inappropriate and cause more harm to the current clients on campus, right? Like, there's a lot of perception that is negative, right? It's a negative overall. It is a negative perception of, like, oh, here comes Michael, that happy alumni wanting to just, like, drop a bomb in the middle of campus and, shake it up. And that's not, in all reality, like, that's not what we're here to do. what we get to do, the invitation that I have for you when it comes to company buy-in, is to change that perception, should it be a perception that we are disruptors, because that is the last thing that we are. And I'll get to that in a minute. The overall goal for any treatment organization, like I said, should be teamwork. And again, if you've been to a collaborative, or if you've heard me, like I say this all the time, and I mean it with so much depth, that team stands for, together, everybody achieves more. Together, everybody as a team achieves more. Teamwork makes the dream work. And I know it's kind of like those silly AA slogans, a day at a time, keep coming back, first things first, all those slogans. I was like, this is a load of horse poop, and I don't want to deal with these slogans. But there's so much meaning in this, because let's be real, you guys, at our organizations, when it comes to our company, sometimes we get siloed, right? Admission stays to themselves, your counselors stay to themselves, you have business development that stays to themselves. We are one, but separate. And that is not how we achieve a common goal, if we cannot all come together when it comes to, especially when you're bringing back or engaging in programming, whether it's on campus or off campus, engaging with people that you claim that you say you want to help and you want to save their lives. So what are we willing to do? When I think about recovery and willing to go to any lengths, what is your organization? Are they willing to go to any lengths to be a team, to be able to bring back and to engage in hope and to engage in programming that will pay off dividends? And we'll get to that in a minute. Like, are they willing to engage in not only just their tiny little team of case managers or business development or admissions? This is about the greater team. And so we're gonna get into why that, and this all has a purpose, I swear. So again, teamwork makes the dream work. Together, everybody achieves more. So how does this happen, right? Like, how do we get buy-in? Because a lot of you are like, great, Michael, like we're getting into this. How do we get them to understand alumni programming? How do we get them to understand that it's vital? How do we get them to want to be a part of it? Like, what do? Bam! We give them a voice, right? You guys, like, we become researchers in our little area. What I have known to be true whenever I've developed programming, whether it's at Harmony Foundation or multi-sites, before I develop anything, I go around and ask people, like, what are their thoughts? Because when they feel that they have a voice and that you include them, they want to be a part of it. They consider us disruptors when we just do all the planning on the side, and then we expect them to just accept us. That's not teamwork. It's not collaboration. It causes chaos, and then it does ultimately cause disruption, and it causes people to be siloed and say, hey, I don't buy this. I don't want any part of it. So we give them a voice. And how do we do this, you guys? Oh, baby, how do we give them a voice? Strategy matters. Strategy matters when it comes to figuring out like how to make programming work on campus and off campus. You guys, I dork out about this, and this is what earned me so much respect and autonomy when it came to programming. How you talk to people and develop programming matters. You start from the front line. So that's why we have this lovely triangle. You start at the bottom. You start with the frontline workers, and then you work your way up to the C-suite. And this is what I mean by that. When I developed a program of Days of Harmony, it was a revisit program I so desperately wanted at Harmony. And I found out about this revisit program at a TPAS collaborative. I was like, how did they do this? How did they create this program and get everybody on board with this? Like, how did they do it? And so I started from the bottom. I started when I had my campus days and I was up on campus. I talked to the techs. I said, hey, I'm really thinking about this program of bringing alumni back. What are your thoughts? Like, what do you see as a benefit? What do you see maybe as a potential barrier to current programming? Like, I want your input. I asked the techs. I then asked the case managers. I talked to every single groundsman, every single player on the field before I went to the suite, so that when I went to the C-suite, to my CEO, to my CMO, and I said, hey, I have a proposition for programming that I really believe is going to work. And I've already done my due diligence. I have already talked to every single department on campus, and they support me. When you show up to C-suite or your director or your senior VP, your VP, whoever it is, and you, because they don't expect you. I'm just going to be real, guys. I'm going to speak very frank here. They don't expect you to do the work. They don't think you're smart enough to do the background work so that they can just have an immediate no. They're like, they're going to come to me with an idea and I can easily squash it. When you come prepared, that is how you gain respect, and that is how programming gets implemented, because you take any work out of the equation for the decision makers because you did all the work for them. You go to them, you give them your proposition, and you say, hey, I talked with Joseph in counseling, and he said, these are the things that I need to address. Hey, I talked with maintenance. These are the safety concerns. This is what I'm going to address. Hey, I talked with HR about this. These are her concerns. This is my solution, right? We want to go, whenever we want company buy-in on programming, you guys, we want to make sure, as I go back to teamwork, we're inclusive. We talk about what it is we want to do so that when we come to the table, work's done. All they have to do is sit back and just give a nice little golf clap. Like, job well done. Like, how can they say no when everybody has already said yes to you? You bring the power. This is not about you coming and asking for power. You bring the power to C-suite. You do your research. You are the one that comes up with, you come up with the plan, you figure it out, right? So again, strategy is so important. Do not go to C-suite first. And this is why I say this. The ground level, they're the ones that are dealing with the clients in the chaos of schedule every single day. They are the ones that will be, whether we want to say they're affected by it or they are inspired by it. I like to say inspired because affected is a bad word. They are inspired by this. And so C-suite, they just sit in their office and sign checks and hope that everything goes well down there. So you know what? We really want to build solid relationships with the people that are in it every single day. Okay. I mean, this is just gold, baby, like straight gold. Okay. So strategy matters. Like I just said, in a row. I'm very visual here. I even told Gina, I was like, I got some great slides in here. You want to get your ducks in a row. Everything I just said, after talking with staff, hearing their wishes and concerns, you get your plan in place. Do you have the necessary waivers? Do you have answers for safety concerns? Answers for staffing as to not stretch them thin. So this last bullet point, you guys, like this one is where they get hesitant and think that we're disrupting, because they think that we want to create programming, whether it's on campus or on campus or off campus, and that we're going to be like, well, we need this person to volunteer and we need this person to volunteer. And we don't want to do that. Again, we are not here to disrupt. We are here to bring our staff and other volunteers in. Or what I did, and I always tell this to people, is if there are people on campus that are really passionate about programming, and you might be in alumni land and you're a staff of one and you're like, Michael, I would love to do this programming you're talking about, but I'm a staff of one. I got an answer. This is my answer. There are always people on campus that have an attachment to clients and alumni and they want to help. So you ask them, hey, if you have a day off, would you mind helping me? I got a lot of staff on their days off that they willingly, not because I made them or forced them, but because alumni matter and they wanted to see and be involved in the process post-residential or outpatient. They were like, yeah, like I'll spend part of my day off helping you with this picnic or with this retreat or this camping trip or this advocacy work or coming back to campus. Like I'll come up. And then they talk to their supervisor and say, hey, just so you know, like you might see me on campus, but like I chose to do this because I want to help. So I also build those relationships. It's not taking advantage of those relationships, but it is, you guys, it is strategy. Like, it is capitalizing on people's excitement for this if you are a team of one. It doesn't hurt to ask, because guess what? If you don't ask, the answer will always be no. So ask anyways, right? And if some programming that you really want to do and you're a team of one and you can't do it right away, that's okay. It's okay. It will come. You know, there is some patience involved with in programming as we build it, right? So get your ducks in a row. Really strategize, have everything in place. Because again, I can't stress enough, they don't expect you as an alumni coordinator, maybe new in the role, they don't expect you to like do all this legwork, because like leadership wants to be able to point the finger and be like, did you do this? And they want you to be able to say no. And then it keeps them from giving you an answer. But when you come with them with all your ducks in a row, like, drop the mic. Let's get some programming going. Okay. This is so good. The ripple effect. Let's talk about the ripple effect when it comes to company buy-in for alumni programming for the campus team. The campus team, they only see alumni at their worst. When they see them on the other side, alive and healthy, it gives the campus team the boost they didn't know they needed. It allows them, the campus team, to connect back to why they do this work. And alumni show current clients that recovery is possible. When I did this program for Days of Harmony at Harmony Foundation, and then later did it at multi-sites, until the programming actually happened, the next day afterwards, so many counselors and then just kitchen staff, nurses came up to me and they were like, I had no idea how much I needed this, because they are in it every single day, you guys. The campus team, like, there are dark days. There are dark days when our alumni are still clients. And sometimes, like, the campus team, they're like, are we going to get a win? You know, because as we know, this disease is a killer. And sometimes, like, all it takes is alumni programming for the campus team to be like, on days when they want to like shake the shit out of Jimmy, like when they see Jimmy come back, they're like, yeah, they're like, oh my God, like, people make it. Like, people make it. And you get to be like, hey, guess what, Sue? You're a part of their success. Like, Sue from housekeeping, Jerry from the kitchen, you know, Polly from admissions, when they see alumni come back, it's like, do you understand that all of you play a role in their success? It's huge. And they forget that in the monotony of the days. They forget it because they have their head down. They're like, get people in, you know, get people their meds, get people fed, get the sheets changed, get this person in my room for an hour to talk about their problems. You know, like, they don't see it until they do. So we get to gift them that. We get to gift back hope to campus. For the outreach team, guys, okay, let's just here we go. This is where like the game changes. What I have realized, and I will also say that Gina Thorne, she did an amazing presentation for NATAP for all CEOs last week, you know, talking about how underutilized, very underutilized alumni are as referral resources. You guys, alumni have the ability to cast a wider net for organization promotion. And that's when alumni want to be engaged in that type of programming. A lot of times, like, again, people think disruptor, like business development teams think disruptor, liability. I don't want to deal with them. Understand that business development teams or outreach, whatever your facilities call that sector, they only see a small piece of the pie. They don't know everything. And how can they? They only can tackle so many places on a given day, a week, a month, a year. You add an alumni in that might work at a major corporation that is best friends with the HR director that can give your company a lead in to be like, hey, like, can we build a relationship? Alumni, there are certain alumni that, yes, they want nothing to do with outreach or people knowing that they're in recovery. And that's okay. Like, we get to protect their anonymity. There are others that are so passionate about their recovery, like myself. If you know me, like I live and breathe talking about it. There's nothing I won't say to save a life. It would be a massive disappointment to the organization and a massive misstep if they did not capitalize on the alumni that want to get out there and say, hey, utilize me. How can I help? I want to help more people get into treatment because my experience with you guys was amazing. So that's where you talk to your business development reps and say, hey, I'll come out with you in the field with the alumni. They don't have to ride in the same car with you. Bring them along, bring them to other organizations. Business development reps, yeah, they're cool. They know how to dress nice and drop off cupcakes and cookies to other facilities, but they don't know how to, and they can speak about the treatment, about the organization. You bring in alumni and they talk about it from lived experience, the game changes. The game changes. And so I always say, you guys, like, from a budget standpoint, when we are looking at this as an organization, and when we look at if your organization is falling on hard times and they're like, like maybe we should cut alumni. It's like, do you realize that alumni in the field with you, $0, goose egg, donut hole, bagel, cost nada. If you are paying for all your business development reps, that's a little more costly. So this is where I say, I'm not saying to you guys, cut the entire business development team. I'm asking and wanting you guys to get curious with your organization about, well, they're great, but if we're falling on hard times, like, how can we strategize to use both? Cut some here, cut some here. Let's find a middle ground, whatever that ground can look like. It's a big deal, again, because when we have alumni coming out and they are stoked about recovery and they want to give back, why wouldn't we capitalize on that? Why wouldn't we want them to help us? Because by them helping us, they are helping other people. And a big part of service, a big part of recovery, you guys, is service, being of service, and being the message of recovery. It's not just talking about it. Our alumni are literally every single day being the message of recovery. And so when you can get your teams to understand that and for them to see that value, how can they not buy into it? I'll tell you, when I started up a multi-site facility and we had campuses in Mississippi, Texas, Ohio, and Massachusetts, they literally had one business development rep at each facility because we were a startup organization, did not have a lot of money. They brought me in because they were like, what can we do? So immediately I got to know the different facilities. I got to know older alumni that still really loved the facility, even though it was going through changes. I got each of the business development reps connected to those alumni that were like, we want to help. Those alumni then got each of those business development reps connected to the community right away, seated them in because they believe in the work that happened for them at their organization. And so once that happened, business development reps, they had an in the community to be able to grow awareness. And then as business started to pick up, they were able to hire more reps. It started with alumni. It started with trusting the people that we helped to put us into a community and to continue to do great work. Valuable. The ripple effect that happens, you guys, is huge. It's massive. One organization, multiple departments, we all have the same goal. And that same goal here in the red, you guys, is for them to have sustained recovery. And if we are one organization with multiple departments that have that same goal, we all need to work together. And we all need to understand that alumni, it is not an afterthought. Alumni is an integral part of the organization as it pertains to every single department. These circles, it is not them standing alone. That is siloed, that is disconnection. We want them together because when everybody's together, we build connection. And that is the antidote. Connection is the antidote to addiction. And we want everybody on campus to feel connected to every single individual that walks in that door, because like I said earlier, every single department plays a role in their success. They really, really do. And guess what, you guys? You get to be the messenger. Like, how cool is it that we get to be the ones that bring that awareness to the organization? You know, like, that is where it's at. So that's why I close this with being able to bring back again teamwork. You know, like, together everybody achieves more. You know, teamwork does make the dream work. And what is that dream that we have? Is that we have a dream of sustained recovery, of families coming back together. You know, it's a big deal what we get to do when it comes to campus engagement and company buy-in. That's all for now. If you need me, this is where you can find me. And we can open this up to any questions, comments. The floor is all yours.
Great job, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. I do have some prompt questions that I would like to ask the larger group to think about and use Michael as sort of a resource. Is anybody currently experiencing any challenges right now in getting staff buy-in to the events that you're hosting, especially if it's like an alumni reunion or any kind of events where you need to have staff involved? I know that I've had quite a few conversations with some of our members recently that say we put these events on, but none of the staff show up, or they fight to come back, or they don't want to be there. Has anybody had that experience?
So first of all, thank you, Michael. This whole concept of involving, you know, from admissions through like the whole thing helped me rethink a couple of things. But any alumni event is rarely attended by staff. And the ironic thing is, many of our staff are alumni. So it's kind of this like, why wouldn't you show up? You know, so yeah, I'd just be curious how people get that engagement. And I like the idea of meeting, you know, going to meet with them and talk to them about it. I haven't done that. Thank you.
No, that's such a great question, Mary. And then I'll open it up to everybody else too. In the beginning with us too, and it's still a thing, because you know, a lot of times, like, if they have a day off, they don't want to be there, or they want to come for a little bit, or you know, people are up on campus and they actually have to work. You know, a lot of, if your picnic is not on campus, if it's at an ancillary location. And so what I always say is that what I did to start to get people that even on their day off, like I would ask, like I went to HR and I was like, hey, can you give me a list who is off on Saturday? So then I knew, like, I would look at the counselor list, and I remember there was a couple counselors at Harmony. I was like, man, alumni would die to see these counselors. So then the list of attendees for the picnic, I fired off to the counseling and case management team. And I was like, hey, this is all the alumni. These are the alumni that are coming back. They would love to see you. And again, like, it's just that coaxing for me. A lot of times they like, were digging their heels. They're like, but it's an hour away and I have my kids. I'm like, bring your kids, bring your fur baby, you know, like, so then it just takes, like, sometimes it just takes different angles of approach. I found that the list showing who was showing up, because then certain counselors did have an attachment to different people. And even the housekeepers and the kitchen people, they would be like, oh, Jerry, he was a doozy at admissions. I can't wait to see Jer Bear, you know, and they would show up. And so I think give yourself a little grace at first with company buy-in. It takes a couple times of repetition of being like, hey, this matters. And I also, at the same time, as much as we want them there, I also have to, like I said earlier, be respectful of time off. But again, it's just continuing to seed it, in my opinion. It's seeding it and trying different angles.
Thanks, Michael. Sean, you had a question or you wanted to provide a comment?
No, kind of along the same vein. I think the biggest issue I run into is, everybody works 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. You toss something in there after 5 o'clock or on a weekend, and it's like, no, I don't get paid for that. Even when you offer them the comp time, it's like, no, but all these stories are so inspiring and these people motivate me, just only between 9 to 5 on Monday through Friday and not on the weekends. And, I guess, me coming from the recovery world, hey, I drank 24/7. So why don't I live recovery 24/7? And we're in the business of saving lives and being in recovery. So what? You take a little bit of time out of your weekend, and sometimes, at least with us, we have the opportunity to get reimbursed for travel. So why not take the time out to come hang out with these people who, like, Michael's, they're our greatest billboards. They are our greatest advertisers and marketing people out there to share our story. But you can't give up an hour on a Saturday, even if bring your dog and your kids. I get it. Henry is a little different. He's, Henry he probably gets a pretty good paycheck, but I think that's the frustrating part, is just getting people, even the senior directors and managers, to give up a little bit of their time. Because to me, the alumni they're the people that we truly, for me, they are the people I work for, not the people that sign my paycheck, but the ones that, I actually work for and care about.
Thanks for saying that, Sean. I will say that in the past, when I ran into this early on in building alumni programs, I got creative and started going to the directors of the departments. So if I needed a couple clinicians at our alumni reunion, I would ask the directors of those departments if they would be willing to adjust those clinicians' time during the week to knock off early because they were coming to an event that we were doing for alumni. So they may not be able to pay them more if they're salary, but they might be willing to adjust their work week if they know that, hey, we need to have 2 or 3 staff members that would be willing to be at the event. And if you do this and you make this commitment, you can adjust your schedule the following week to leave early. That always worked really well for me. And so certainly something to think about is going back and talking to the executive leadership of each of the departments where you might need, especially clinical, because as Michael pointed out, our clinicians are in the grind every day, and they often don't get to see and experience the rewards of their work. And when they do find themselves at our events, they're kind of like, okay, it's all worth it. It's not always the gloom and doom. And so it's enough to say that to them, but when the rubber meets the road and they have to literally like make sacrifices on a weekend after working Monday through Friday, it can be really challenging for them. But if you give them that dangling carrot of, I think we might be able to negotiate some changes to your schedule next week, because your clinical director gave permission for you to be at this event. And in lieu of doing that, you get a few hours off the next week. So I found that to work really well as a potential solution. And, again, it's a hard nut to crack, because our clinical staff and the staff on campus, they work very hard Monday through Friday, and they treat their weekends as sacred time, or the time that if they're working 410s and they have to, get time off, it's really difficult sometimes for them to say yes. And so removing the objections is always a really important step. So what other questions do people have for Michael in regards to this idea of like, how do you get staff buy-in? Does anybody have any other examples of success stories of what they've done? Casey, I know you've been doing this for a long time. I wonder if you have any recommendations.
We did one thing that was working before the pandemic really well was a newsletter that I was just sending out specifically to clinicians, and it was more or less just like an amalgamation of like highlights, like people who had picked up chips and people who were celebrating on social media and things like that. And it was just like screenshots. and I wasn't broadcasting it, but I was sending it out. I was sending it directly to the clinicians that were on their treatment team, and that was really cool. We had some fun with that, and I think one thing now that's happening is I'm able to do more, and I know this isn't for everyone, but I'm able to do more events on campus and use our facilities as much as possible. And I mean that's what people want to do anyway. They want to come back to campus. But I mean I don't ever my go-to isn't really to uh invite them to an alumni event. I just kind of incorporate staff as often as I possibly can in the invites. And it just kind of organically has like turned into something. And so as long as I can be direct about it, like it always works better if it's warm, right? So I'll grab a flyer or a stack of flyers and just kind of walk around and just be like, hey, did y'all know this was coming up? Blah blah blah. Make sure they know they can bring their family too. And I haven't had an alumni event that there weren't at least 2 or 3 staff members at uh since we came out of COVID. Um, but I don't know if that's exactly what we were going to talk about, but that's just what came to mind first.
It's a nice tactic. I like that.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any thoughts on strategies, or even if you're experiencing specific challenges, like there's an event that you would like to host, but you're concerned that you can't get the buy-in from your team on campus on making it happen?
One question that I have, or at least one objection that I've run into, is some HIPAA privacy issues, and that if we're bringing alumni on, you guys call it campus, onto campus, for the clients that are in our care, there has been some pushback about we have to protect their privacy. And so keeping those two I know these two groups separate is important for that reason. And I eventually got the event. I had the event, but has anyone experienced that?
Oh yeah. I was like, this is so great. So I will tell you, like in the beginning, and actually it was even, they really didn't want it, because they were like, well, what if what if they see somebody? I'm like, you have no idea who's ever going to come into treatment anyways. So like, what are you really trying to protect? Like, are you trying to protect like them being upset, or like it's really about them? It's not about the client. It's like it's their own ish that they're working through. I actually had a HR director that wanted to do background checks. I think Gina remembers that for Days of Harmony, our HR director was like, well, then we're going to have to do background checks for alumni to come back to campus for a revisit program. And I'm like, we don't background check clients, like that's like a total loss of dignity there. And so sometimes it's just talking through it, because there's fear. Like fear is a huge driver of decisions in like, and also just people wanting to keep the peace. People like routine. They don't want things to get shifted, because if it gets shifted, like power and control is a big thing, you guys. And so it's, when people say that, it's like, it's just getting curious, like, hey, like, what are you really concerned about? Because visitors can come, the delivery driver for food can see somebody, like it's really about, again, like, I think it's just getting curious and recognizing it's not about our alumni programming. It's bigger than that when it comes to just like fear and control and keeping routine and just being able to talk about it. One thing I did want to say that I did have happen that I thought was great for any new staff that came on board at Vertava Health, when they came on, didn't matter who they were, part of their onboarding schedule was attending an alumni peer recovery meeting, or attending, like they got to attend as part of like coming in for their first year, like they got to attend an alumni event. Like it was part of onboarding so that they could experience every part of the, like, all, because like with onboarding, you get to meet with every department. So like what I suggested was, I don't want to just meet with Joey. I want Joey to experience alumni. And so he got to pick and meet with his supervisor to say, hey, I want to go to the alumni picnic, or I want to go to the camp out, or I want to go attend this meeting if it's during my schedule, like, but this is a part of onboarding into the organization, so that they really get to understand what alumni is, and not just talking to me, but it's about experiencing it. So
I've also found that clinical clinical finds the value out of our work when they see how they can utilize us to do their job. So when I had a team working with me, and they all had been trained as certified recovery coaches, and they knew how to talk people off the ledge when they were in program from wanting to leave AMA or ASA, they would pull in our alumni coordinators who were certified recovery coaches to sit with those clients and get them to like a place of, stability, to say, hey, I know where you are. I understand you're struggling. Here's where I can be of help to you. Or they would take them for a walk, or they found that there was more to the alumni role in the organization than a reunion or a picnic or what have you. And that's a paradigm shift. When they start to understand the work that we do is much bigger than just sober fun, which of course is incredibly important in sobriety, because so many of our clients, when they get sober, don't know what that looks like. And that's one of our roles, is to teach them how to have fun in sobriety. Even though that's typically what we're identified as, they also start to learn over the course of time, when they see us sitting in treatment team meeting, when they hear about the work that we're doing and helping case managers with placement, or when we're following up with alumni post-treatment, all of a sudden our value proposition starts to rise and the buy-in gets stronger. And so that physical presence and being in your organization and being present in some of the areas of what other people are doing and showing people what your value can be to make their job easier solidifies that buy-in so much more.
Yeah, on top of that, I think too, one thing that makes it easier for us is we do have a pretty steady flow of alumni coming in to Cumberland. And that is mainly we have on-site, we call aftercare meetings. We're trying to rebrand it so that it doesn't sound like what other people call like OP or IOP. But basically, I mean, we have on-site meetings for alumni that the patients are welcome to attend. And so sometimes they're assigned to attend, but they're always welcome to attend. And that kind of creates more of a community-based feel on campus. And so every single one of those people, signs a confidentiality agreement. There's a waiver basically that they're asked to assign, and they have to go through a kind of a formal process to like register, more or less. So we kind of have a gate, if you will, and we have a security officer there, and so they have to kind of be on the list, so to speak. That way there's just not anybody rolling in. And so there's kind of a, it makes it feel like they're still insulated, so to speak. I think because of that, we don't really ever hear that. We don't hear that from the clinicians. We don't hear that from the patients. It's just kind of understood, and that makes it a lot easier. So, I mean, to give you an example, like our big alumni event every year is this picnic, and we just had it a couple of weeks ago, and there were 650 people that came. There were 102 patients in our census that were here that also attended, and it was just amazing. And they got to meet a lot of people they would have never met in the community, and they got to involve themselves in a way that they never would have been able to. And I think just the fact that people get to meet people who are already on the path makes the the argument way beyond a concern about confidentiality.
Well, thank you, Casey, for that feedback. And Michael, again, many thanks for your time today and for a great workshop. I just want to remind folks that we've got our upcoming events of our virtual collaborative, which is going to be July 17th from 9 to 2:30 Mountain Time. So do your math and figure out what that looks like on your time zone, but you can register now. The registration is online on our website at tpass.org. And then we also have our live registration for the Fall Collaborative in Malibu, October 6th to the 9th. Both are ready and waiting for you to sign up. So next month, we're really excited to have Kevin Johnson, who's a board member as well, talking about building alumni programming for adolescents. Some of you who are getting familiar with TPAS community will see that yesterday I sent out a slew of invitations for our monthly workshops so that you can get those on your calendar. If you haven't had a chance to do that, please do so. And then something new that I'm doing, there are no CEU credits for this, but I will say that it's nice to have a certificate of completion when you attend these workshops. And so you will be receiving an email from me with a certificate of completion for this workshop that you can maybe put in your personnel folder or share with your leadership. So I'm really glad to see all of you today. Thank you again for participating. We look forward to seeing you next month. For those of you that attended the Spring Collaborative, I look forward to seeing you guys next week at our reunion meeting. And just stay in touch. That's what I'm here for. Thanks again, Michael.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Good to see everybody.